All right, it looks like we're live with Laura.
Good ring.
I know. I'm Carolyn Grabiel with Jabu Mind, and I'm introducing Laura Post, who is a school psychologist in the Palo Alto School District. And I have known Laura for quite a while. I'm so
how many years?
Yeah, I don't think I'll go into how many years, but
many decades.
Yeah, Laura's been a school psychologist for 30 years. So, and if that tells you anything, and we met at UC Santa Barbara in our beginnings of trainings for her to be a school psychologist. I still remember some of the psychology classes we had together. So, Laura, with that, I'll turn it over to you and let you say any other introduction, and don't let me forget about our coffee mugs.
I will not. I have my mug right in front of me. So
okay.
I don't have a lot to add. I did study developmental psychology at Santa Barbara, and that's how Carolyn and I got to know each other, as well as being sorority sisters. And then I went on to grad school at UC Berkeley and studied educational psychology at Cal. And right out of that program, started working for Palo Alto. I'm probably one of the few people that most people would know that I've had the same job since 1988. I've moved around at grade levels and whatnot, but I've worked for the same school district for 31 years. So
fantastic.
It's been a great thing. And so why mess with it if it's working?
Exactly.
Do you want to share your mug and then I'll share my mug?
Well, certainly. That sounds like a way to go. It's always hard to choose a mug. We seem to have so many ones from all different occasions, but I love this one. And I don't know if everybody can see it. It's open to interpretation, but it reminds me of the ocean and the sky meeting the mountains in Santa Barbara, which reminded me of you and of the
good
together in time that we met there. So that's mine.
So I don't want to harp too much on Santa Barbara, but both of my children, one has graduated, one is attending as we speak. And my husband went to parent orientation for my son a couple years ago. And he said there were a lot of really stupid questions from parents in the audience. Like, what do I do if my son doesn't wake up in time to go to class? I'm like, come on, people. So my husband asked very intelligent questions, of course. As a result, he won this mug that says, keep calm and parent on. And it's got the little palm tree, I guess, for UCSB, and it's UCSB colors. So
that is perfect.
That was perfect for today.
Perfect. Yes. Yeah. So we're talking about teacher-parent communications today.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to take a sip. It is warm in Oakland. It's almost 80 degrees, which was not expected. So I've got sparkling water in my mug.
I have water in mine too.
Mm-hmm. All right. So we want to talk about parenting and parent-school communication. And I think right now, I told Carolyn, I wanted to start by just saying that nothing is normal right now, that we keep talking about the new normal, and I think it's the new abnormal. Everything has changed, and we're all being expected to do things that we really have no experience with. And parents in particular are being asked to work from home, teach their children from home, and still manage the scheduling and of meals and whatnot. And it's just a whole new level of stress for parents. And one of the things that I want everyone to kind of keep in mind, and when I talk with parents, I need to remind them, I just did this morning in a meeting, that we've all been traumatized by COVID-19, and we're all in a grief process. And that grief process, we move in and out of it, and people need to be tender with each other. And parents need to acknowledge that this is very weird, and the kids need to understand that we're going to get through it, but it's weird, and we're going to have bumps, and we're going to get through them together. So I feel like that's really important. And I think one of the things that I've struggled with, I've been doing this job for over 30 years, and I've never felt incompetent except maybe my first couple weeks.
When you said that comment to me, that Laura, for any of you who even see her, you can get it now. She has never been incompetent in anything that I have ever seen. Maybe her husband would tell me something different, but or her kids, but I have not seen it. So
I am struggling with, particularly as a support person, how can I support my teachers? How can I support kids? I mean, I have some things I've been doing, but I'm the psychologist that walks into the classroom and walks over and asks the kid to show me what they're doing, and that I'm just super relational and interactive, and to not be able to do that, you can't do that in the same way over Zoom. So it just, I think because I'm so relational and that's so limited given the circumstances right now, it's really made me feel like, gosh, I don't know what I'm doing. And whenever I share that with other educators, they're like, oh, we all feel that way. And I think parents probably feel that way even more, because they're suddenly thrown into the role of being a teacher. So I just wanted to couch that. And I think we all just need to be extra gentle with each other during this time. And hopefully time will be over soon. So,
that's an excellent way to put that, Laura, too, because the more that each person admits to that, brings it out, it makes it okay. It makes it normal. You're normalizing it for everyone. So
everyone can take a breath. You know, and say, okay.
Coming from
I just freaked out. Anyone would freak out under those circumstances.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be better tomorrow. So I wanted to just mention this, and I sent this to my staff this afternoon. Carolyn, on the website for Jabu Mind, there is the article about 12 tips for parent-teacher communication. And Aaron and Carolyn, both from Jabu Mind, collaborated, and I just want to give it a shout out. It's fantastic. And I feel like all the tips that she talked about are exactly spot on, and I wanted to elaborate on a few of them. So I think that's kind of how we're going to spend our time.
I feel so lucky to have Erin. She's such an incredible writer and a teacher also. She
graduated from Stanford, but I won't hold that against her.
We feel very fortunate to have her. Go ahead.
So one of the things that she mentions and that we did for the beginning of the school year at our school is teachers set up meet and greets with parents for 10 or 15 minutes to meet not just the kids, but the parents and sometimes the family. And I thought that was super important. They did that, a lot of them before school even started, because there wasn't going to be that face-to-face. And they all wanted to have a face to go with the name on the roster before the first day of school. And that's mentioned, and I think it's super important. And if it hasn't happened with some teachers yet, I don't think it's too late. People have already started teaching, but then you could say, we've had some time together, now I want to get to know you a little bit better. And I think it's a great way to build community. And I know some of our teachers were sharing their pets, and kids were sharing their pets, and kids were sharing their spot where they're going to be working. And I just feel like it was a nice way to start parent-teacher communication in a really positive way at the beginning of the school year.
So. Absolutely. That sounds like a fantastic idea. I've heard of a few places that have done certain things with that, a drive-by.
Yes. And speaking of a drive-by, our kindergarten teachers kind of went a little rogue, and I asked for their permission to make sure this was okay. They reached out to make sure that parents were okay, but they wanted to see their kids face-to-face, because I think particularly with little ones, Zoom is really a challenge, and they were just this lady on the screen. So a couple weeks into the school year, they actually made appointments, and they went by and they met their kids with social distancing and masks, and they dropped off these cute little elephants, which is the Jabu Mind logo also, so that fits in nicely. But this comes from Teachers College in Columbia, and she's Mabel. Her name's Mabel. Maybe it's a he. I guess it depends on who's using it. But she's a phonics elephant, and she helps the kids learn their phonics skills, and they can use her to follow along when they're reading. And every kid got one of these from our kindergarten teachers. And the next day, they were all so excited to bring Mabel to the table with them and to read with Mabel. And they have points that Mabel earns. And it's just been like a great way for the young kids to connect with kindergarten teachers. So
that is a fantastic, the face and the tie-in, and having then the object to hold.
Yes. The level of engagement skyrocketed the next day after Mabel was introduced. So I thought that was super cool.
Yeah, it is. Did they plant the elephant? Here's our elephant.
Oh, there you go. Yes. And there's a big elephant in the classroom. This is kind of the miniature one that the kids get. But, you know, if you go to Mabel the Elephant online, you can order like a whole phonics kit. They've got all kinds of curriculum, so it's kind of a cool thing.
That is cool.
And along those lines, in terms of reaching out to parents, this is kind of common sense, but I always feel like it's tricky when you have a concern. And I think I always urge, even with my own communication, start with a positive and some things that you really have observed about the kid that you feel are strengths, and maybe ask a few questions about things maybe the parents could share with you that you don't already know before you bring up a concern. And I think that that just sets the tone for the conversation to be positive as opposed to people getting defensive or whatever. So I feel like that's really important. And I feel like these teachers are kind of paving the way for their communication with parents, because there are already concerns, of course,
Yes, of course.
So to have that positive connection with a meet and greet and with the actual in-person meet and greet, I think is great. And then just to remember, when you're communicating, it's like with anything. See, let's start with the positive, and then we can move into the concerns. So I think that's a big one.
Well, and that's what his communication, of course, is such an important part of teacher's job,
Yes.
and the parents back and forth, but it starts with the teacher. It's one of we have some professional development pieces in our app, and one of them is difficult communications, created by our licensed clinical social worker.
Right.
And so, yeah.
Because I don't know that teachers necessarily get really specific training on how to do a parent-teacher conference and how to reach out to teachers. And I feel like it's kind of trial by fire. And sometimes they really need some extra support, particularly if it's a difficult situation and they're talking. Sometimes they have to be the family therapist, and they have to be, the teacher, and sometimes the parent even, to help with.
I imagine quite often.
Yeah,
I'd imagine that's at least 50%, if not.
Exactly. So
okay.
I also brought up that, of course, email is probably our regular way of communicating for the most part. And almost all of our teachers have a weekly email that goes out about classroom activities and sort of things that are going on and things they need parents to upload, or, those kinds of things. And I just recently encouraged my staff to get parents to maybe share some things in those weekly newsletters, little victories. So that they can see that, oh, I tried this with my kid and it worked really well, and maybe someone else would like to try it. And then that's making them a little bit more, a part of the community. They're being a little vulnerable, and I think that can build the community within the classroom, particularly since we can't all be together.
Yes.
And an example I have of when I did that was I had a little girl who was really struggling with self-esteem and self-confidence, and mom reached out to me, and we read this little book together about, I can do it. It was just all this positive self-talk kind of stuff. It was almost like cognitive behavioral stuff. Yeah. And I let her bring the book home to share with her family. And her older brother, a few years older, was struggling with something. And she used the terminology that she'd learned from that book to help her older brother. And then mom reached out to let us know that was just such a victory, that not only was she using it for herself, she was trying to help her sibling to overcome adversity or some frustration. And I thought that was great. And that's the kind of thing I think would be great for parents to share with each other.
Yes, yeah. And that is how it goes, right? I mean, that's how, when you learn something, you share it, or when you're calm, it helps others to be calm.
Yeah.
See, when your point about bringing the parents in to be part of the solution of I tried this instead of making it a team. I think you and I talked about I don't know if I go back to our Psych 101, but this study always comes back to me. It's been done over and over again, but it was first done in the 60s, of Pirates Cove. I think Shahid or Sharif was the name of the person who did it. He did it over several years. You can never do it now, but they brought these boys onto an island, told them it was a camp, and then created two teams and pitted them against each other. And, all sorts of anger and shenanigans, some of them, kind of dicey, ensued. And then to undo that, they made subordinate goals for them to work towards together. Like, if you do this together, you can buy a $5 movie, or and it brought the boys together. And the more they did, the more together they came.
Total sense. Yeah.
And that common.
And parents all have the common goal of raising their kids to be independent and to be able to, to learn without their parents intervening constantly. And I think that's a perfect example of, it can get tricky and it can get divisive at times. And if we can kind of remember we're all on the same team, that's going to help us all for sure.
Yeah.
And along the same lines about emails, I feel this just happened again today. I had a teacher come, and she had some concerns about something that a child had written, and it was unusual. It was a fourth grader. And she was like, oh, should I email mom? And I went, nope. You need to pick up, as I call it, the 1,000-pound phone. And
I love that term.
Phone call. Well, it's true, because I think we are used to before texting and before email and whatever, and we were on the phone all the time. But I think nowadays, and we have a lot of young teachers, everything's email, everything's text. And you forget that, particularly when you're going to solve a problem or you've got something sensitive to bring up, sending an email, probably not the best way to communicate that information. And she totally agreed with me. And she said, I hadn't even thought about that. So
we forget.
Pick up the phone.
Well, you can't put the face, but the tone.
Or you can even, I sometimes, if it's sensitive and I feel like I need to talk to the parent face to face, I will email them and say, hey, I want to check in with you about something. Let's set up a Zoom. So thank God we have this technology. And so either way, but it allows for reciprocal communication, which when there's a problem is super important. So it's not you respond, then they respond in not real time, and people can get defensive and they exactly. In my own personal life, I have found, this is turning into a problem over text or over email. I need to pick up the phone and call my friend.
Reel it in, pick up the
Yeah.
I even have one of those.
The 1,000-pound. Wow, you have the landline. Oh, mine. I don't have a landline anymore. So anyway, I know we're running out of time already. Set up weekly teacher office hours, I think, is a great thing for teachers to do, so that there's a set time where kids and parents can check in with the teacher if they have questions or concerns. Something I'm doing to communicate with parents in terms of my availability is I'm going to have a counselor's corner in my principal's weekly newsletter that goes home, that will have tips and will have links to things that might be helpful for parents. And every time my email will be in there. And I also have an MFT intern, and her email will be, so if you need help with anything related to social emotional, send us an email and we'll figure it out with you. So I think
I love it, because then it's right there.
Exactly. I think every week as a reminder. And so
there's help from somewhere, but if you can dial direct instead of calling to the front office.
Yes.
And who do I talk to? And they say,
yeah. And a lot of times I find it's easier for me to email and set up a time than to try to just call a parent in the middle of the day or whatever too. I've just found that works. The same thing if I'm trying to connect with like a physician or something, email, set up a time and do that. And then the last thing I want to do, which is super old school, but I love it. We have these good news from school postcards that teachers can complete and send home, and kids, you can address it to the kid, and the kid gets mail, which most of our kids really don't get mail very much anymore. And we have it in Spanish as well. And what I've done with them is I sit down and I fill it out with the kid if there's something that I want to share, and then we kind of decide what we want to say, and then put a stamp on it, stick it in the mail, and then their parents are super excited to get good news from school instead of the what we often reach out when there's a problem. So I feel like, again, positive communication, treating each other with kindness, and remembering that we're all in a really particularly stressful school year right now, and that we just got to, communication is probably that much more important than it almost ever has been at this point. So
absolutely, thank you so much. I mean, those are such wonderful tips, and I think that's with the communicating and when you're reaching out to a parent, I think that's where we try also to say, okay, deep breath first.
Yes.
Maybe a 2 or 3 minute meditation.
Yep.
So,
really good. Yes.
Yeah. Just so you can get centered.
Yes.
Before you reach out, and I think
and sometimes we want to respond to an email immediately, and that's not necessarily the best thing. And maybe doing a Jabu meditation before, or waiting till the next day is totally okay. You don't have to respond at 9 o'clock at night. That's just not necessarily the best MO.
The sleep one. Oh yeah, you haven't heard the rest of it. You haven't heard a whole sleep one.
Yeah, that's right. I've fallen asleep every time I do the sleep one. So I love it. So.
Yeah, I love it too. Well, thank you so much. I love the postcards. I want to make sure that you showed those. So I was making sure that I didn't miss anything in my note. I really just think that's such a good communication tip.
Yeah. And it's something the kid can hang on to and really.
You can go on the refrigerator.
Yeah, or put on the refrigerator. Exactly.
Yeah. Well,
do that with an email. At least not
30 years of experience shows, and I'm sure that everybody wishes they could keep you for 30 more. I'm glad I can.
I know that's true. We're not going anywhere. Well,
No.
I still love my job as much as right now it's more challenging than it's ever been. It is rewarding. And I do feel like, I'm providing something that's really important. And I feel really fortunate. I'm at my school 3 days a week. It's a school of under 400 kids, and I'm there 3 full days a week, and my intern's there 3 full days a week. So Palo Alto definitely values that social emotional support and provides it for their kids, which
we've seen that in our research, and when we were surveying thousands of teachers, that it kept coming up as one of the districts that does that. So
for sure.
Fantastic. Well,
thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for taking time in the midst of and we just got from another UCSB sister. Go UCSB. Go. Thanks, Laura.
Thank you, Glue. Thanks, Glow. Take care.
Bye, all.